Microcampus is a program where students are able to travel to Southwest China for a month to experience life outside the bubble. I was lucky enough to be a part of the tactical Microcampus group and call Xizhou my home away from home. One of the main projects we worked on before and during Microcampus was our inquiry project. The topic I chose to study was body language, and throughout my time in Xizhou, it steadily progressed to focus on the differences of gestures, way of walking, and physical appearance between locals and tourists. I also grew interested in the cause of these differences. In order to understand perceptions held about the people of Xizhou, one might consider the perspectives of long-term residents, perspectives of short-term tourists, and the perspective of a student who has been living in Xizhou for a month. The locals of Xizhou make up a very tightly knit community. One of the people I talked to within the first week was Mr. Yang, a horse carriage driver. He got really into his views on the differences between locals and tourists, saying that locals have darker skin, walk with a purpose, and use eye contact as a form of respect. As for tourists, he says they wear much more revealing clothes. He also believes that they do not interpret the Xizhou culture correctly, as they claim to their friends back home that things such as flower crowns, synthetic tie-dye, and hair weaves are staples of this lifestyle. Hearing how certain non-authentic products were created only to sell to visiting tourists left a strong impact on me. This is because I never thought about how these products and the way I sometimes purchase them could be offensive and disrespectful to the locals of an area. To me, it was a bit nerve-wracking to talk to strangers at first, but after talking to Mr. Yang, I became much more confident in my ability to make connections and talk to locals including Miss Zhao, who owns Old Town Snacks, or Mr. Huang, who runs a tea shop. They all echoed the same ideas Mr. Yang shared with me, also telling me that many tourists choose to wear their backpacks in front of them. However, they are not sure as to why. Looking into tourist perspectives, I met a girl named Stephanie by the edge of Sifangjie, who is a foreigner from Singapore. I approached her because she was the one tourist who was not on her phone. She noticed many of the same things about tourists as said by locals, but did not notice that there was a drastic difference between the way the two dressed. The best part of our conversation was when she asked me for other places to go besides Sifangjie that showed more of the Xizhou history. This showed me that there are tourists who go places beyond the purpose of a photo. Sadly, many tourists have the general attitude, as shown by their body language, that they are superior in comparison to the locals. Mrs. Li and Mr. Luo are examples of two Chinese tourists who I talked to. They both believe that locals are older, poorer, and pickpockets compared to themselves. They believe that locals always looked at them because the locals wanted their money. This is why they wear their backpacks in front. Hearing their responses, I was extremely bothered as they were making assumptions of people they have never conversed with and acting as if the locals didn't have a story themselves. However, I realized that everyone, including myself, has walked through a place with that mindset. After this experience, I promised to myself that it would be something I would watch out for. Throughout this process, I watched myself people watch or be people watched. Personally, I'm aware that I am neither a local nor a tourist, but that I am somewhere in between. I understand the importance of clothing choices and eye contact, and know the area well enough to walk with a purpose instead of wandering. It was interesting because through my interactions with others in the community, I could tell that the locals were aware that I was not one of them, yet most tourists approached me for directions, as if I have lived here for years. A moment to remember was during Phase 3 work, while I was talking to different tourists regarding my project. Whenever I introduced myself as a student traveling internationally, they would be open and happily answer my questions. If I did not introduce myself that way, they would often give glares and tell me to go away. They would even put their arms around each other, signifying that they thought of me as dangerous. That, I believe, was when I was most able to understand how disrespectful they could be of the community, as it was evident that they were acting rude because they thought I was a local. Seeing how both groups of people treated others took my project far beyond just the concept of body language, as it pushed me to remain cautious of my actions towards others, both in and out of Microcampus. By looking through the perspective of locals, the perspective of tourists, and the perspective of myself, I was able to comprehend the perceptions held about people of Xizhou, and realize that everyone's views are affected by their personal culture. However, I believe that the most important aspect of my inquiry project was not about the differences between locals and tourists, but to push me to places I used to feel awkward in, such as talking to strangers, so that I would gain personal growth and make the most of this experience. I am so grateful to have been a part of this incredible journey, and I will never forget this once-in-a-lifetime adventure. Microcampus has been the time of my life.